All right. So, welcome to the Midlife Momentum podcast. I am very pleased today because I've got a guest with me. Her name is Chistine Bernat. Chistine has faced many challenges in her life. In 2017, she was working as a teacher and she was in her early 50s. She was diagnosed with chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, depression, and PTSD. And in 2019, after battling these conditions, she was told she'd be on sick leave until her retirement, basically. So, however, instead of giving up, she found answers and she became a certified heart centered stress management coach, an EFT Master Practicitioner, a Tollerra Energy Systems and Heart Coach, and much more. And as a result, she's created two proprietary techniques to help kids, parents, educators through using the breath and awareness to release stress and anxiety in seconds. And she's made it her life's mission to help others learn the power of self-regulation. So we'll talk about these things today in the podcast, but I just want to welcome Chistine. Thanks, Chistine, for joining us today.
Thank you, Debbie. It's an honor to be here with you and to have this conversation because it's just so important to spread the news that there are easy ways to de-stress our brain and bring it back to be recentered and grounded quickly. And that's obviously what I needed the most.
Yeah, it sounds like you've had quite a story. Do you want to take us down through a little, at least whatever you're comfortable sharing here, what happened to you and how you managed to get out of it?
So I can just in a couple of sentences say that, I disconnected as a kid from who I really was. And I was taught to say yes. And I was also taught to say, when people would say, jump, Chistine, I unconsciously would say, how high would you like me to jump, dear? With my dad, with my husband, with anybody. So I wanted to please everybody. But we all know today that's like insanity, isn't it?
Mhm.
So what brought me was the most I was in a narcissistic relationship for a year and a half, I think. I don't even remember. I don't even want to remember that part really. But it really brought me down into a deep, deep, dark hole. And it was like, sometimes you get life lessons. And it was I worked at an elementary school. The principal was really interesting. I would have not qualified that person to be a principal personally, but it's okay. It had to bring me back to me, and because I wasn't becoming myself out of the lesson, I kept getting layers and layers of it until I crashed the last week of 2016, and in 2017 I slept like 20 hours a day.
Wow.
Okay. I only got up to eat and to feed myself was about all I could do. By February 2018, with all these diagnoses and trying to take medication that made things even worse, I was non-functional on all levels. I needed a sacrolumbar support just to stand up. And, I needed to rest 2 hours if I knew I was going to go do groceries. And then just the drive, the 15-minute drive there was enough to take another half-hour nap to go in. And in the store, I'd be looking for places to sit down because I couldn't stand up anymore. I was exhausted, my back, my whole body. I couldn't remember what I wanted, what I needed. I couldn't remember my passwords. I couldn't remember. It was just a really kind of a mess, right? I was in a mess. But of
Mm.
course, with my children as well, I had become a total mess. And I'm glad today that they moved away from me to keep their sanity, right? They needed to move away. So, to all these beautiful people that have kids that are moving away from them, I'd ask, what is it that you need to shift?
Mm. Mm.
There's something that you need to do. And there's a perception that you have. And it's the hardest thing to do is to say, what can I shift? It's not, what am I doing wrong? Right? We're raised to, are you doing it right or wrong? And that is just, that brings us down to the rat hole where I was in. And so what can I shift to be more myself, my loving self, and have so much love and compassion for myself that it radiates out to my children, to those that I love. And then, because if I'm judging myself, I'm also judging others, aren't I?
Yeah.
And I mean, I was raised that way. It was my beliefs. It was ingrained in me. I had to be perfect, because if I wasn't perfect, I wouldn't be loved. So that little girl in me, way down when she was young, bought into that belief
Mm.
and believed it to be the truest thing there is on this planet, right? And made every decision according to that, instead of being able to look at things and say, hey, is this good for me? Does this support me? Will this bring me forward into who I really am? So it's a whole shift, it's like a day and night perspectives, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I needed to go. But how can I go there if my fear factor is at 1,000 out of 100, right? I
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah.
So I was always making decisions unconsciously, of course. I wasn't wake up in the morning saying, how can I decide to be meaner to myself? How can I be, more neurotic today? I mean, and the word neurotic, I use it because in about, I think it was 2019, 2020, my daughter had said to me, she says, Mom, you used to be so dramatic. And I'm like, me? Dramatic, So then later on, I'm in the car, my son's driving, and I said to him, I said, do you think I'm dramatic? He says, oh, Mom, you're not dramatic. You're neurotic. I'm like, okay, I can laugh about it today, but I can tell you at that time, I was not laughing.
Mm.
I needed to self-regulate in that moment, right? You need to self-regulate because the first thing your brain wants to say, how dare you say this to me? What are you thinking? But
Yeah.
I knew, like, even in the tone of voice of my son, he really said it lovingly, you
Yeah.
know, he
Yeah.
really, he wasn't trying to put me down. He wasn't trying when kids roll their eyes at us, they're not, we often as adults misinterpret that as disrespect. Yes, it's not the most respectful thing you want somebody to do to you, but why is that child rolling their eyes? Why is this loved person rolling their eyes at you?
Mm.
Whether the child is 2 or 35, it doesn't matter. The point is, there's a reason behind it. And instead of feeling attacked by what was done, what if you were able to just snap, breathe in, tap on the sternum, relax your shoulders, and just exhale and
Mm.
ground yourself in that moment so that you can be yourself, so you can be back to your loving self instead of all the stories we've told you. If you, if somebody rolls their eyes at you, they're disrespectful. If somebody talks back, they're disrespectful. If somebody doesn't take your advice, they're just, they're this, they're that. I mean, we buy into these beliefs without even realizing it. And it's like an unconscious, automatic responses that we have.
That's
And
good.
and it's not like we got up that morning and we said, today, when somebody says this to me, you know, I know they're going to be disrespectful. It
Yeah,
isn't.
it's like a judgment that we have. Like you said, that word before, judgment. We have a lot of self-judgment. Therefore, we're judging everybody else because we assume they're judging us. And it's just a big judgment like cycle. I think that a lot of us get into. I know you went through this at a high level. Obviously, there were
Yeah.
a lot more things involved, I'm sure,
Yes.
but it's just this whole cycle of assuming that everybody is judging us and then we are in turn judging them. That's
Yes.
it's amazing to how do you get out of that cycle? So I know you mentioned, and before I go any further, because I want to just understand when you say self-regulation, because we do hear this a lot today, and I don't think everyone understands exactly what that means. Can you just explain what self-regulation is?
hmm So I thought I'd look this up on the internet because I was kind of curious and I had a lot of weird answers. But the one that I liked was self-regulation is the ability to manage your emotions and behavior in accordance with the demands of the situation.
Mm. Mm.
Mm. I thought that was well said. A
Yeah.
lot of them were self-regulation was about taking control of your emotions. And it's not about taking control. I mean, you can, and but then you're still doing it with the mind. You're not doing it with your heart.
Mm.
And to me, doing it with the heart, if you're always coming from a place of love, and that does not mean that if somebody is yelling at you, you go into the heart and you say, oh, I deserve it. You do not deserve it. But you can say, just a minute, I need to go to the bathroom right now. And you scoot out of there and you calm yourself down. You self regulate. If you need to call 911, if you're in a desperate, like, you do it. But the point is, you're at that point. The thing that happens when we're dysregulated, if you will, when our survival mode kicks in, we're unable to use the part of the brain that is called the prefrontal cortex, which is the part that analyzes the situation calmly from an outside point of view. I mean, we all know that when somebody raises their voice at us, some people it's not raising the voice, it could be whatever the reaction the person has to you, whatever the like just this, oh my goodness, last week I was driving and a deer came out in front of me and I braked but as hard as I could, but I didn't hit it super hard. I didn't kill it, but I injured it. And and I didn't realize how hard I pressed on the brakes because all the stuff on the front seat had flown down on the ground. But I was in shock because I've never had an accident. It was my first one at 59
Wow.
and it was a deer. Like it was a deer. Like, oh my goodness. So here I was like self-regulating the whole time because I would have just been in sobs because to me, to hit a deer was like, I don't know. To me, it was for some other people, they'll hit a deer and they don't care. It's okay. I hit the deer and I left it there and whatever. But for me, I had to stay there because it was a bit in the road. I didn't want anyone else to have an accident. I
Mm.
think of all the options. It took over an hour for the police to arrive because I don't live in the city. And,
Wow.
and, but the point was, if I had not been able to self-regulate, I wouldn't have been able to even find the phone number because I was too much of a mess, an emotional mess.
Mm.
Being able to manage those emotions
Yeah.
in that moment, right?
Yeah.
And when your children, your spouse, your loved ones are making decisions that you don't like, you need to be able to calm down the amygdala, which is that part of the brain that brings you into survival mode, like if it's the reptilian part of the brain. So like if there was a lion running after you.
Yeah.
And it's
Or a
all
deer runs into the road and you have to slam on the brakes.
yeah.
That is what kicked in, right? That survival, like, I gotta stop the car.
Yes, but the fact that it brought me into trauma,
Mhm.
is who I am as well. But
Mhm.
the fact that I couldn't stay calm and just say, "Oh, it's not a 911 emergency, but I can just Google the number and, there's the police and call them." Like I tried, but I couldn't find, it said they're closed. And then I couldn't think that we have the city next door and we have the whole province security and I couldn't get it. Finally, I called a friend and she looked it up for me. but it was because I want to leave 911 for real emergencies where they have to be there because I was okay, but they don't
Mhm.
take care of the deer with 911, do they? So I just needed, but my brain went into survival mode. It was unable to stay logic, calm, in the moment, and just say, okay, well, Memphis Magog police can't come, but oh, there's the Quebec security that can come, and oh, here's their number, and dial it. And, just because I had been, my brain had been kicked into that survival mode.
Yes.
And that was like, because it was traumatic for me, but anybody else who doesn't, I mean, if they're like, some people have hit 3 or 4 deer. So by then they're used to it and they're like, oh, here's the number. And okay, I hit a deer, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But every situation, we all react differently according to our experiences.
Yes.
And it's these experiences that we've had. Like I said, I've never, ever, I don't want one, knock on wood. Where's the wood? There's no wood here. Oh yeah, on the floor. But see, that's another belief. But as well, for me, is because I wasn't fully present in the moment as well. Because I know I usually see them coming. I usually sense them coming as well, because I have this sixth sense. So it brought about a whole big shift in who I am, to really look at, how can I, Chistine Bernat, get a lot more grounded right now? What is it that's keeping me in that semi-survival mode? What did I just do before? And I know what I had just done before. And I was like, okay. And just worked on releasing. And I continue to do, I have the technique that I created for adults. I call it Snap, Set, Go. And that came from the necessity as an EFT Master Practitioner. My clients needed support between appointments so that they wouldn't be down and up and down the emotional roller coaster all week or for 2 weeks, whatever it was that was the time between our appointments. And because EFT protocol was too complicated for them to remember and do. So the Snap, Set, Go just came about. Like, it's just intuition. I don't know, just this knowing of, and it's super, super easy. You just snap your fingers. You breathe in as you scan your body, and you tap on the sternum, roughly at the heart level, just gently, the pressure of a nickel, if you want. And you notice in your body where the tension is. You relax your shoulders and you thank your body for showing you where it is, and you exhale it out. Now, for women, I've done this and they love, generally speaking, blowing all that hurt, that tension, that the thoughts, the emotions, the feelings, and the thoughts, they love blowing it into an incinerator. So imagine there's this incinerator and it blows it all up. Because I have found that, so far anyway, that those of us who, are really affected by the emotions and the pleasing is because we have a big heart. And we have this fear of not wanting to hurt others.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. Because we know what it's like to be hurt ourselves, and we don't want to do that, right? Because we have
Exactly.
a big heart. Yeah.
Yeah. And saying no, oh, I can't say no. I mean, everybody says no to me and it hurts. And how dare they? And there's a part of our brain that says, how dare they? So this how dare they needs to be put into the incinerator. The words people use. I'm not saying put the people in the incinerator.
No,
But for
yeah.
some people, putting the image of the person in the incinerator will release that tension that you have between the person. Because you're not literally doing it. Obviously, it's an imagination. Did you know that there's this it's a basketball test was done with a basketball, like a high level basketball team. And the coach asked a third of the team to just do nothing during the week for 2 weeks. The other third of the team to imagine that they were really good at their hoops at whatever point line it is, the 3-pointer line. And then the third group was to practice for the 2 weeks. And hold and behold, at the end of the 2 weeks, which third do you believe improved the most?
Well, I would think it would be the one that practiced, but I'm going to say the one that, did it in their own mind.
Yes. Isn't
Yeah.
that surprising?
Yeah, it's amazing. That is
When I
amazing.
realized that, and I had this beautiful little boy I was working with and his mom, and he kept saying, I have this rotten carrot in my tummy. And that's when I realized he was afraid to let out the pain because he didn't want to give it to others.
Mm,
And as women, that's us as well.
yeah.
So I so that's where I have the spiraling train that brings it all down into the magma, or I have the hot air balloon. But I found with women, they love the incinerator, and there's a bigger release that happens by incinerating those emotions, those feelings, and those thoughts
Mm,
that you can,
I
if
love
if
that.
I yeah.
Yeah, I love that idea, and I want to go back a little bit because I'm curious to know how you even got like from where you were. How did you even figure this out? Like, how did you even get to where you are now? Because to be honest, it's not really that long ago, right? That you
No.
were in that state where you physically and emotionally were broken,
Yeah.
if
Yes.
we could say that,
Oh yeah, I was.
right?
I was emotionally, physically, energetically, spiritually, like on all levels. This girl was like down the drain, really.
Yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
just amazed that now you are like not only on the other side of it, but are teaching this to others. Like you've come full circle, like or 180, let's say. Yeah. How did you even
Mm.
know how to get out of that? How did it start?
There's a lot of different things. I had been, I don't know, the EFT that I was seeing a kinesiologist, and she kept trying to get me to see things, and she says, you're meant for great things. And I was like, rolling my eyes, and I was kind of suicidal at the same time, a little bit, had the thoughts, and I was like, I can't be, no, I'm not going there. Like there was this other part of me that was confronting those thoughts, right? And but I think it was really there's a few little things, but I want to give credit to Mark Romero and his music. You can find him on YouTube, and his music would ground me,
Mm.
and I would listen to it all the time. And he said, Christine, like I couldn't even I bought it, couldn't download it. He called me personally. I almost fell over. This guy in the States calls me, hi, Christine, what's going on? And I'm like, whoa, and I can barely function. So I started with his music, and I had started following Nick Ortner with the EFT, and of course then I was up, I was down, and I had started with a naturopath who had a medical license in France, but in Quebec you need to redo the whole courses, so she became a naturopath. So I knew at least that to help my family accept my choices to have a naturopath that was also had been a doctor in France gave her more credibility. And but I was still going up and down, And it wasn't really until like one Wednesday night, I still remember in the middle of the night, it was like EFT Lindsay. And I'd been coming over and over. And I said, okay, I've had enough. I've had enough. I keep hearing this in the night and it wakes me up. I've got to do something. So I took my phone, I Googled EFT Lindsay. 2 people came up and I took Deborah Lindsay and started my certification. But what happens is that when you tap on a meridian point, and we have many, many meridian points in our body, you're sending a message to the amygdala, that part of the brain that sends you into survival mode, and you're telling it that you're safe. And that's why when we tap on meridian points, it's like we're talking to the unconscious part that's connected to that amygdala, that survival mode. We're telling that reptilian brain, yeah, that was a long time ago, buddy. It's not true anymore. There's no lions running after me today, right?
Yeah.
And we watch so much stuff on TV. The mind does not know the difference between what we watch on TV and the reality. And I still remember when Bart Simpson came out, and my students started talking to me like, they do. And I said to them, well, I'm not Bart Simpson, so you don't have the right to talk to me that way. And I would highly recommend you stop watching it if you can't talk to people in a nice way with who you are, because they're seeing it, they're testing it out. They're smart kids. Kids are very, very smart. And they're always our best teachers, always. Even if our kids are 30, 40 years old or 20, my children are 24 and my son's going to be 31 next week. So they're still our best teachers. Yeah. They still have things to teach us. And this is, and this is the way I perceive it, when we are willing to listen deeply. Without shame, blame, make wrong, judgment, all that stuff that we were raised in.
Yeah.
So the EFT was the first big step. Yes. And I trained myself, and it was recorded. I couldn't take a training that was in person or that was, come on Zoom for an hour, because I was able to play 2 words, stop it, write the 2 words. Sometimes I'd forget the second word and play it again to get the second word. So a 1-hour lesson could take me 6 hours in the day.
Wow.
That's where
your state of mind at the time, the
zero memory had been erased. I couldn't even remember 2 + 2 was 4, or 4 × 4 was 16, right? I had like my memory had kind of been erased in the midst of it all. So it was that started. And then when I finished that at the end of 2019, I started my Tollerra Energy Mastery Systems journey with Marianne Robat. And that was mind-blowing. And because of the EFT, I was able to go to that realm, if you will, that open up to, I discovered I had always been a person that had gifts, and that I could use them on myself and on others if I wish to help them, and that I had a very high intuition. And I mean, when I was little, as a teenager, I would have premonition dreams. I would dream what would happen. It wouldn't be exactly the same thing. Like I could have a dream that my dad, that the milk controller, because we were on a dairy farm, and they would come and take samples of milk and put them in test for bacteria and everything before it was, they'd do that, I don't know how many times a year. And this gentleman would stay at our place overnight because they do it twice anyway. And they would check in anyway. on that story goes. But I had dreamt that he had dropped a test tube and my dad had gotten like so angry at him and told him to get the hay out of there with his rifle. And,
Oh boy.
yeah, oh boy. So the next day or a couple of days later, the controller said something nice about the neighbor that my dad was having issues with. And my dad exploded and threatened him.
Oh boy.
He didn't take out the rifle, but he threatened them that he would get it if he didn't get his stuff and go.
Oh my gosh.
So I still haven't allowed myself to open that ability up again because but I do feel it and sense it sometimes. And I've learned to, because the Tollerra journey was a 2-year journey, and every month we'd learn a new technique, and my intuition got stronger and stronger and stronger, and getting to know, like, I didn't know I was a highly sensitive person. Nobody had told me what that looked like, what that was like. And that's the biggest thing. When we were 40, 50 years ago, our parents didn't know anything about what we know today. And that's the huge difference is, today we have this ability to look for tools and tips and tricks that will help us be ourselves. And if we tune into our body and listen to how our body feels according to that, instead of what our mind tells us, because of our programming, because of the culture in our community, the culture in our family, the beliefs in our family, or what we were told at school, what we were told by some teachers, sometimes we really value someone and then they say something. And I was like, when I started learning EFT, I went to a class, online class with a really well-renowned person. And when I offered ideas, they kind of shut me down. And hold and behold, today, they're teaching that.
Oh, really? There you go.
There you go. So sometimes it's just, but by going with Deborah Lindsay, who had an open mind and she was able to, oh, yeah, I see what you mean, Christine. Yeah. And hold that space for me to be me in there. And that's what I
Yeah.
needed the most. So I look for people who can
Okay.
accept who I am for who I am.
Yeah.
And then I'm around amazing people. And the others, I lovingly just let them, move away. If they're always there just asking, right? Because they're great askers. And they will ask. It's the example of going fishing, right? You go fishing in the pond. If you don't get any fish, will you keep going to that pond or that lake?
Yeah. No.
You won't. You're going to change lakes.
Yeah.
So why are you, the fish, hooking on to that fishing rod that doesn't serve you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's it's so important. And I mean, obviously you were able to do this in a huge way. You really took in the information that you were looking for,
Yeah.
and not only made yourself better, but now you've helped, and you are in the midst of even coming up with your own methods of helping others.
Yeah.
And so I know you were a teacher, so part of your work is to help students and teachers as
Yeah.
well, and parents.
Yes.
Um, and so are the techniques that you've developed, are they with students in mind, or are they for everyone? How do these techniques serve everyone, or serve the people that you're trying to serve?
So the first technique I created is called snap, set, go. And the set stands for seconds of emergency technique, right? Because we
Okay.
need to snap. And the snap is really important because it's like, oh, okay, where am I? What's happening? It brings you right
Yeah.
to the present. And then the tapping, I mean, doing a whole EFT protocol was complicated. I wanted something super simple for the parents because at that point, I was trying to listen to my daughter without judging her,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? And how can I do that if everything she says triggers me? Because she wasn't making the choices I wanted her to make, right? Notice those words. She
That's
wasn't making the choices I wanted her to make.
I think a lot of women could could sympathize with that. I think we all find ourselves in those situations, don't we? So
Yes.
it's
So
interesting.
what I would do is I was applying my technique that I was teaching to my clients so that, and then I ended up recording it. So I just tap on a meridian point, but I'm on the phone and I have one hand typing on a meridian point. And while my daughter would be talking to me, I'd be like, yes, honey, and I'd breathe and I'd put it in the incinerator and just, oh, really? And because I needed to do that, it was my judgment. It was everything that the way I was raised is you judge your kids, you tell them what to do, you can't let them be themselves. And that's how I was raised. And unconsciously, even though that was the last thing, that was absolutely the last thing I wanted to do, it's what I was doing.
Yeah. Yeah, because that's what you learned, right?
Yes. And now I hardly need to self regulate at all with my daughter. I just learned to empower her. And for if you have any moms on the call or dads that want to
Mhm.
hear about this, what I learned to do is, of course, self regulate with snap, say, go. But also, while I'm listening, is look for those little things that she did that I was proud of her for doing them. She could have had like an hour story, but there was this one thing. And I'd say, oh, honey, I am so proud of you. Did you notice that at that point you were able to make that decision? That is really good because you could have decided this and he could have brought you there, but you made that decision right there and then. And then, so I planted seeds of confidence, of pride in her, right? Being proud of your choices that you made. And she went from working for a boss who punched her in the stomach, okay, to
Mhm.
working for a place now, only 3 years later, where they're creating better jobs for her because she's so talented, right? So it's like I my motivation was to because of course I messed up my kids with the way I was, right? I mean, they wanted a loving mom, an unconditional love from their mom, but their mom was such a mess that I couldn't do that for them.
Mm.
So now it's my main goal. But what is it do they need? They need an example.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's my huge motivator so that they give themselves the right to just be themselves. And as
Yeah.
my daughter said, she says, Mom, she was going out with a guy when she, like in, I don't know, maybe 2019, and it was his mom was a mess, but his mom is still a mess,
Mm.
right? And I'm back hiking mountains and I'm on podcasts and I'm running events and I'm, all these things that, there was no hope in 2018 that I would ever do them again or
That's it.
2019, right?
And I think you're giving others hope now too, because a lot of us are mothers, and there's a lot of guilt that goes with that because we're not perfect.
Oh,
None of us are perfect. None of us have done it perfectly. We
yeah,
have a lot of guilt about the way we've done things, but it doesn't mean we can't change. Even with adult children, we can
yes,
change and we can transform those relationships
yes,
later on as well. And we can even help them,
yes,
see things differently just through, like you said, our example. We don't have to
yeah,
force them to do it, but
yeah,
once we get our stuff together, then
yes,
we have this
yes,
ability just by leading by example to transform their lives too. And it's not too late. And yeah, I think you give a lot of hope to women out there, me included, because I know I wasn't perfect either. There's things I wish I could do differently,
Mhm.
but I can do things differently from today and
Exactly.
make a difference, right?
Exactly. And I love how you say that because, to have something that's quick, easy, and simple, like snap, set, go, it's 9 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
Snap your fingers, breathe in for 3 as you tap on your sternum, relax the shoulders for 2, and exhale for 4.
Yeah, so good. There's
So,
something about tapping on the sternum too. But
yes.
obviously, you know a lot more about it than I do. And I've had somebody, an EFT practitioner, I think it was episode 4, like right at the beginning of the podcast. And yeah, when I do that, I just immediately feel calm. There's something
Mm.
about it. It's like the vibration of your body. I don't know, but things just sort of like, oof, I
Well,
feel
it's your
better.
heart. And
Mm,
it's your thymus gland that's in that area. So you're boosting your immune system and you're kind of sending a beautiful vibration to your whole heart.
yeah.
And but around the ears, I like there's many in the Snap Set Go that's available online for parents to use. I mean, you don't have to be a parent, but what I really liked is I had an audience when I recorded, so they're asking me questions. So I'm answering a lot of questions. So hopefully that'll help people.
Yeah, that would be good. That I think that's a good resource too. And I know we'll get to how you find that online at the end, but yeah, what a great resource.
So
So, yeah, go ahead.
sorry, I
Yeah.
just want to make sure that I talk about Snap, Tap, Zap for kids
Okay. Okay.
because um as grandparents, some people are grandparents and they need a technique for the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I've created it in a 2D video animation.
Okay.
So you can just, as the grandparent, when you purchase it, you'll be able to just press play and do it with your grandchild or learn it. So it's really the same thing as Snap Set Go, but it's the Snap Set Go has 7 levels. Like it even has the limiting beliefs and everything. But for the little ones in elementary school, they don't need that. They just need the basic of it. And it's introduced little step by little step so that it's easier for them. And if
That's so good.
kids cannot, or grandparents or parents, sometimes we have arthritis in the fingers, we can't snap. Well, you can clap.
Yeah, clap. Yeah. And it even rhymes, so easy to
Yeah,
remember.
clap, zap, tap if you want instead of
Yeah.
snap, tap, zap. And it's just, if you feel resistance to the technique, you need it the most, or you can reach out and we'll support you.
That's lovely.
It's
It
not.
is that something you're gonna roll out in schools as well, or
Yes,
yes,
definitely.
okay,
That's the
amazing.
ultimate goal. I know that my mission is to help millions of children around the world.
Yeah.
That includes these moms and these grandmas that have a little girl inside of them that's hurting.
Mm,
And my specialty has become being able to quickly connect, to see, feel, sense, know which little girl inside of you is hurting, and to help you release that hurt that she went through, give her the love that she needed when she was little. So yesterday I was just doing something with this beautiful lady, and it was just beautiful to be able to go see that 2 year old in the crib that was crying, but just give that 2 year old all the love that she needed,
mm,
because the adult mind can imagine going back, right? There's that imagination part that I bring into the my coaching and my helping you move past. And just going in there as we're tapping to calm the amygdala, because the amygdala will be triggered, I tell you, because it goes against who we are, what we believe, and what we were taught.
yeah.
And that 2-year-old and the lady that was in front of me was just like, "Oh my gosh, it feels so good." It
Yeah.
just feels so good to hold her and show her that I love her and be the mom that she can get in that moment when she was in the crib crying, hoping for her real mom to come, right?
Yeah. Oh, wow. That's powerful. I
Yeah.
I've used not that exact thing, but just as a coach, just helping women see that there is a little girl inside of them and to remember that girl and to go back and to, how would you speak to her and how would you treat her and what does she need? And I just love that. It's so
Yeah.
powerful because when we bring it down to that, it's like, wow, there's nothing but love there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
know, and releasing the emotions, feelings, and thoughts that 2-year-old felt at that moment. The abandonment she felt, the rejection, the not feeling seen, heard, valued, and 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 putting those in the incinerator, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that the mind today, it can release what it was holding back then.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
still holding on to and yeah, wreaking havoc
Unconsciously on.
today, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna wind this up, even though I feel like I could talk to you for hours and I just love your calmness and I'm a very calm person too, so this is really good.
Oh,
I
thank
just feel
you.
like it's
Thank you.
very calm and
Mhm.
soothing, this conversation.
Thank
But I always ask my guests, what's the best part of getting older for you? So I'm asking you.
It's getting healthier.
Yeah. Yeah, you've gotten healthier through your 50s with all of this. Like, I mean, you were going through obviously some stage of menopause when you were going through this as well, which is amazing to me. There was a lot going on for you.
There was a huge amount going on for me. But, yeah, it's really, I think, the ability to just, look within for my wisdom.
Mm,
Yeah, from my experiences, and we have a bit more time. And instead of complaining and whining that our kids aren't calling us or blah, 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 that our friends are busy or blah, 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 what if we just take that time to look within and see? And when I was saying there's so many techniques, tools, and strategies out there, don't listen to the marketing of it. Listen to how your body feels with it,
mm,
and your body will guide you to what it is you need the most.
so good.
And if you, because that's the wisdom, that's one of the best parts of we have so many experiences, and if we can be able to get to a point where we're using snaps that go to calm our amygdala down, be present, grounded in our experiences, and say, what's the best lesson that I need to learn from this? So right now, my best lesson from my cousin's husband who passed away, and my other cousin who passed away, who's younger than I am,
So sorry. Yeah.
like since October, death keeps showing up. So why is death keep showing me up? Because I need to wake up and get my mission moving forward.
Mm, mm. Yeah. We need to use those life lessons, right? To see what's in them because there is always something that we need to be learning and to
Yeah.
have the presence to do that. And I think so many women at this point, and especially in the world we live in, that is what's missing is to get very present
Mm,
with ourselves and who we are and what we want and
yeah.
to connect to our bodies.
Yes.
And these are all really amazing things that we could learn right now. And this is the
Mhm.
perfect time to do it. I
And
just
I
love that.
I can see the difference between my mom and dad.
Mm.
My dad's always expressed his anger. Like he didn't keep it in. He threw it out. Well, he just turned 90 in March. And in October, we climbed Mount Orford, which is a 500-meter elevation hike. And it's like we did like 8 to 10 kilometers of hiking
Wow.
in that afternoon. So, and my mom's having a lot of issues. She's had a lot of trauma, but she's not connected to her body. Like, how does this feel? She can't feel in her body.
Mm.
And I know that it's because of all the trauma. And if I had gone through what she went through, I probably would be in the same stage she's in. But I think I was going there, right?
Yes.
When I woke up and was able to tune into that inner wisdom and start listening to it a little bit here, a little bit there. I get lost along the way, and then oops, I'm reconnected. Like last Wednesday was a call like, hey, Christine, reconnect, be that gentle soul that you are, because a deer is a gentle, animal, and it's beautiful, and it is also who I am.
Yeah.
But I was starting to get off that track for XYZ reason without realizing it.
So good. So good. So many good lessons. So, Christine, if anybody, any women who are in my audience right now want to get in touch with you
Mm.
or want to find out about your programs, how can they do that?
My website is christinebernat.com. So it's CHRISTINEBERNAT. Or you can do my email directly, but on my website, you can have access to my email, which is christine@christinebernat.com. And
Okay.
I'm
So
on
good. I'm going to
Facebook.
share all of that in the show notes as well. And I'm sorry at the beginning of the podcast, I said your name in English because I
It's
didn't
okay.
realize it was a French name. But there we go. Christine Bernat.
No worries,
Sorry.
Debbie. I mean, it's just a name, right?
Oh,
And it's okay. And
okay.
when you say Bernat, well, people know there's a T, but when you say Bernat, they don't know it's a T. But even French people try and massacre my name, so don't worry about it at all.
Oh, so good. Okay, so I'm going to share all of that and anybody who wants to get in touch with Christine can. So I just want to thank you so much, Christine, for being here today, for sharing all your wisdom. I know that there are so many women in my audience who will benefit from this.
Well, I hope they do, and I hope they connect to that inner wisdom inside of them and that they find their own solutions.
Thank you so
And if
much.
somebody says it's impossible, walk away and know that there is a possibility for you. You just need to find it.
We have to remember. That's so good. Thanks, Christine.
Thank you.